to be a co-chair of the Transgender Equality Task Force because we really have a unique platform to celebrate and protect our transgender friends and family across the nation and to combat a lot of the hate and disinformation that's out there right now.
I am also so excited to be a co-chair of the Transgender Equality Task Force and so thrilled to have other members who have family members who are trans, because for a couple of years we didn't. And it does make an enormous difference to have multiple voices lifting this issue up in every single arena that we interact with in Congress. And so this is a real honor for me, and I think it'll bring a renewed and necessary focus to the issue of trans rights at a time when, you know, in 2020, 20 states passed anti-trans bills. So this is just a really critical moment, and of course, uplifting trans folks of color is also really important to me.
Thank you, and I am thrilled to be chairing this task force with both Congresswoman Jayapal as well as Congresswoman Wexton, because they really understand. When you come from a place of understanding, whether it is a loved one that is trans or someone close to you, it makes a world of difference. What all of us, I think, really want everybody to see is the community as a whole, that we are your neighbors, your friends, we are your relatives, we're everywhere. And so the trans community, all they want is to be appreciated, respected, and seen.
For me, my beautiful kid came out as trans, initially non-binary, now really identifies as trans a couple of years ago, and I gave a very emotional speech that I was not expecting to give during a hearing in Judiciary Committee on the Equality Act. And I was texting them at the time and saying, how do you feel about my sharing your story? Because I just do think that while I've always been a supporter of LGBTQ equality, watching them go through the process of having to figure out which bathroom they were going to feel most safe in as we went across country, or figuring out how to try the clothes on that they wanted to wear, or figuring out who and when to share this information with. And really then also seeing the unleashing of creativity and sense of self that comes when you are fully able to be who you are, I think was just a new feeling for me as a mom.
And I can appreciate Pramila's comments so very deeply, because my daughter, when she was transitioning about 5.5 years ago, her biggest issue, in addition to not quite understanding where she felt comfortable with regard to bathrooms and places and friends and all that, but knowing who to trust. That is a really big deal with this community. And it was heartbreaking to watch how she would really calculate, wow, is this person going to be trustworthy? How are they going to react to the news that I'm trans? And on and on and on. So imagine living that day every day, where you don't know who to trust and you're not sure where you belong. Those are two things that are part of everybody's everyday that we all take for granted. We all know where we belong. We all feel comfortable in specific spaces. So I encourage everybody, as they think about, particularly our trans youth, that not only are you growing up, and that's hard, but then trying to figure out where you belong in the world. So,
well, for me, this has been personal for a long time, and it started when I was in college and my college boyfriend's sister transitioned, and this was 30 years ago. So it was still highly unusual. It wasn't really fully understood, but she was so fortunate because she had a really supportive family. And for us, it was just no big deal because it was who she was. And so that was really great. And then when I was running for Congress, my good friend Danica Rome was elected the first openly transgender state legislator here in Virginia 10 in my district. And she was absolutely fantastic and so brave and inspired so many people. And around that time, my niece came out as transgender. So when I was sworn into Congress, I decided to hang the transgender flag outside my office. Now for me, that wasn't a really big deal. It was just that they had been under attack and I wanted to protect them and show that they had a supporter in Congress. And it was absolutely amazing to me, the outpouring of emotion that I received. I got code notes and postcards and thank yous from around the country. People came to Congress to take their picture with the flag. It meant so much to them. And it was just a really small gesture and that meant the world to me. Important because it shows that transgender Americans are our friends, our neighbors, our family members, and that they're here, that there's nothing to fear from them, and that they just want to be valued and respected and treated with dignity.
That everybody's equality and equity should be a part of how we live every day. So for me, the Equality Act is critically important because when you change minds, it takes two big areas. It takes legislation, but also takes changing hearts and minds. And sometimes legislation leads and sometimes hearts and minds lead. Remember, 80% of the nation approves and is supportive of LGBTQ equality. So let's follow the lead of the nation and pass this act.
So beautiful. And, I think about it's International Day of Visibility, right? And so we are part of a movement around the world for transgender equality. And I think that is a really important thing to keep in mind. There are things happening in other countries as well. And people look to the United States to really ensure that we are here in the leadership of promoting equality and rights for everybody, including trans folks. And the things I've been thinking a lot about is safety. How, again, we all want to be safe in our lives. And I know that for so many trans folks across the country, there is an issue of safety, just being able to know that you can go out in the streets and be safe. And that's something, as I was looking at murders of trans folks last year, almost 400 murders of trans folks, 79% of them were folks of color, trans people of color.
And it's not just the harm from others, it's also the danger of self-harm, because so many transgender youth don't feel that they fit in, don't understand what's happening to them, and want to hurt themselves. So it's very, very important that we get them the supports they need, and also combat these attacks and these ignorant stereotypes and things like that, which have no basis in fact.
Congresswoman Wexton, I am so pleased that you brought that up. That is a critical issue that is tough to talk about for trans folks of all ages. My daughter actually did have those feelings, suicidal feelings, and we worked through it. She's a rock star. She is thriving now, but those episodes of self-doubt and terror are beyond real. And it's so important for everybody to understand that not only are trans folks more likely to have a very frightening engagement with law enforcement when they have some level of engagement with them, but they are 5 times more likely to be suicidal at some point in their life. So safety is critical, and I'm so glad we're talking about this openly.
I think there's just so many things we can do, but number one will be listen. Let's listen to the voices around the country that know what they want us to focus on and work on.
That is such an important point, Pramila. Listening to trans activists and our trans youth and trans adults, understanding what their day is like is so critically important. And the word that I keep thinking about whenever we talk about this is just full inclusion in society, and being comfortable and being able to be authentic and genuine, because the lived experience is the most important experience. I have learned so much from my daughter, and I keep learning every day. So let's keep listening.
Absolutely. It's so important to listen and to also celebrate and elevate the voices and visibility of our trans friends and neighbors. And we really do have a unique platform to kind of take a whole of government approach, because there's not a single area that doesn't matter. It matters in healthcare, it matters in education, it matters in housing, it matters in criminal justice. I mean, there's so many different areas where this has impacted our trans friends and neighbors in a worse way than our cisgender friends and neighbors. So we've got to make sure that we elevate their voices and listen and be heard.